Welcome to Jones Family Farms, folks, and another beautiful spring day. We've got a little Mother Nature moisture that's gently landing on our soils. And we've got another special Farmer Friday today. There you can see one of our bird boxes that we recently installed. Sometimes these things need to be redone. And we have a special guest today who is doing some bird studies. Why don't we tell you who you are?
Hey, I'm Brian Roach. I'm a volunteer for the Connecticut Bird Atlas Project. It's run out of Yukon, and it's the first study in about 30 years to take a look at Connecticut's bird populations.
Wow. So you were here back in the winter time, correct?
Yeah, back in January. It was a lot colder, but then I was looking at that time for the birds that are winter residents, the ones that spend the entire year here. So this time of year, at the end of April, early May, we're looking at the bird species that are nesting in the area. So I'm looking not only to see what birds are present, what species are present, but also what their behaviors are. Are they collecting nest building materials? Are they fighting over territories? Are they singing from prominent places to establish a territory? So I make notes of that and submit that to the headquarters at Yukon, where the ornithologists review all that data. And they're collecting data from volunteers like me all over the state. And we have designated areas, and we visit during sort of key periods in the year, and this being one of them.
So I can hear some bird life around me, and so there's little tweets over here, and there's little chirps over there.
Yep.
So that's a good sign. But you've probably seen a lot of changes with the bird life, the different habitats as our climate's becoming a little warmer, right?
Exactly. Well, as I mentioned, it's been over 30 years since the last statewide survey for the Bird Atlas took place. And during that time, there's been a lot of land use changes. Forests are gone, wetland areas are gone, and even other areas where there were forests, they're more mature forests. So we're seeing a lot of habitat changes across the state over the last 30 years. But as you mentioned, Tom, one of the other issues too is climate change. So we're starting to see more southern species moving north. So as an example, a really common woodpecker species now is the red-bellied woodpecker. And yet 30 years ago, they were really rare. 30 years ago, that was the type of bird where if you heard one had been spotted, you'd get in your car and race over to see it. And now they're everywhere across the state, and they are by far, in this area anyway, the most common woodpecker species we have around.
So, we see that as well. There are certain insects that can create problems for our crops that we didn't see as prevalent in years past.
Okay.
Is there anything with bird life that can be, as they migrate further north, and habitat capabilities that can cause an impact for a farmer?
Offhand, I'm not sure. I would imagine that some of the species of birds that can be problematic for farmers, like certain blackbird species, if their numbers increase in this area, it could be tough for farmers. But I think one of the birds eat a lot of insects. So one of the things that could be happening that might be an indirect effect to farmers would be the fact that a lot of the bird species are changing. We might see more or less, say, swallow species that eat a lot of insects. So it is yet to be determined how these climate changes are going to impact Connecticut's farmers. Because I don't know what the impacts to our bird populations are yet. And maybe by studying some of the data that people like me are collecting now, they'll be able to make those types of determinations.
Yeah, now you're making me think about the woodpeckers you mentioned. Would the emerald ash borer have had any kind of impact on providing more habitat for woodpeckers, more insects to eat, I guess?
It's possible. In some areas I've seen, because the ash is a very prominent tree in a lot of Connecticut forests, and in some areas if you look in, you could see all the dead ashes. Woodpeckers have stripped the bark off to get after the bugs that are inside, the larvae of these emerald ash tree borer beetles. So I think, at least for the short term, some species of woodpeckers are having a field day on these invasive species, but not enough to keep them in check.
Yeah.
So it may have a little bump in the population of certain woodpeckers because they've got a little more to eat for a while. But I think the long range effect on something like the emerald ash tree borer on bird populations would be a difficult thing to say at this point.
That's what the scientists are for.
Yeah, right.
And helping them is the data that you're and other volunteers are collecting.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Hey, we're glad glad to allow our farm to be used for this research, and we thank you for volunteering your time to help in the project.
Thanks, Tom. You know, the Connecticut Bird Atlas Project is really appreciative of places like Jones Tree Farm for allowing access to private property in order to conduct these surveys, because so much of Connecticut is private property, and we really need the cooperation of landowners so that we can get onto sites and look for the birds and get a better understanding of what their populations are.
Terrific. Well, it looks like a nice day to venture out into our habitats, and I'll let you get to your work. So
thanks, Tom.
Thanks so much.